Hey guys, it's Chidama, or aka Chi Chi. And if you've been following me on Instagram, then you know that I decided to start a personal portrait challenge or painting challenge back in December of 2020. Let's get into it. So day one, I started off originally with the Strathmore mixed media sketchbook. The dimensions were 5 by 5 by 8.5 inches, and it was fairly small. I enjoyed working with this sketchbook, but I didn't like that it was spiral bound. And I prefer for it not to be spiral bound so the portrait doesn't move around as you're working, or you don't have to like necessarily tape it down. So day one, I did this sketch in maybe 3 hours or so, or 4 hours. I think this portrait took me the least amount of time out of the entire 30 days. But I really enjoyed how the day one portrait came out. I focused more on having the piece feel and look a bit more painterly. So his portrait didn't necessarily have to be like perfect, but I just wanted to get my feet wet and get my mind prepared for this 30-day challenge. So we switched over to this new sketchbook, and day two took me maybe 5 hours or 6 hours or so. But yeah, so when I started on day two, I decided to paint this beautiful image of a woman smiling. And funny enough, I felt like each facial expression reflected my current mood in relation to the challenge. So like day one, you can see his facial expression. He's not quite sure. He's like, okay, can I do this? Okay, I can do it. I'm here, I'm present, I'm owning it. And then day two, the portrait that I chose of the woman, she's smiling. She's like, wow, like I have so much joy right now. Like, this is amazing. This feels great. And so I wanted the. So day three, I would call day three Black Boy Joy. I really loved how his portrait came out. I wanted to do a portrait of someone with locks. I really loved how his lips turned out too as well. Day four, I really enjoyed this portrait. Her hair and her lips, for sure. I wanted them to look three-dimensional. And I really enjoyed the coils in her hair too as well. We have day four. Day four was really fun. I loved like the retro 70s vibe. I really wanted that to come across through this portrait. And I wanted it to feel hazy as well, like, if that makes sense. I really enjoyed doing this portrait. His portrait turned out really great. I really enjoyed painting the lips and his hair. So we are on day seven. Day seven was a lot of fun. Again, I'm using the same oil medium throughout. And at this point, I realized that I did want to focus on a different feature or facial feature in each portrait. So here, I really focus on like emphasizing the volume of her beautiful forehead. And also, I wanted her eyes to mirror the shape of her eyes to mirror the shape of her head. And so like almond eyes, almond forehead. So yeah, that was the goal with this portrait. And I really loved like the detailing and how the canvas, the gesso in the background behind her showed through. If you were following me along on Instagram, I created a reel with this portrait for day eight. And I focused on his hair, and I really loved how his lips turned out too as well. His portrait was a bit more painterly, so it wasn't as smooth. I used some of the same techniques that I used for day one with his portrait. Then we move on to day nine. Day nine, I really wanted to have the colors flow with the portrait of her as well. And also I focus more on like lines and shapes. So if you see like the L shape of the her portrait there, I wanted that same L to mimic the L from her neck to her blouse. So you just keep seeing the same shapes over and over in the portrait if you look really hard, really closely. And then I started focusing more on the light source too as well in the portrait. So day 9, I really was enjoying this the most. We have day 10. So day 10 was pretty quick for me for some reason. I focused on like making sure his face was balanced. So if you were to cover up one side of his face, the other side of his face would be the same. And then the forehead was a lot of fun to paint, and his hair. Day 11 was actually my sister's birthday. I love her so much. This was a lot of fun to paint of her. This is the only portrait that actually has the detailing of a head wrap. Everyone else, there's no hat, there's no head covering or anything like that. So I really enjoyed painting this portrait of her. It turned out so beautiful. So we're on to day 12. Day 12, I actually created another reel. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen it. And I used a palette knife to paint in the background around his face. This was the first profile portrait that I've done too as well. So I wanted to switch it up and focus on only having like one ear or the side profile of his face, so you can see like his facial hair growing in. So I could imagine like if he's, due for a haircut because of COVID, what would the mood or what would that painting look like? So that was a lot of fun. Day 13, I really enjoyed painting her portrait because I wanted to, just have her hair texture pull through, and I really enjoyed doing this like tie-dye like background too as well. And I wanted the three-dimensionality of her eyes to pop out. So this was a lot of fun to paint for sure. I also used the color wheel to make sure like I used violets, red, violet, to make sure that like the colors were on warmer tones. So I didn't use any cool tones on this portrait, but yeah, you guys definitely get a color wheel when you're working or mixing colors. It's definitely changed my life for sure, and has just benefited my artwork in so many ways. I can't express how important it is to use a color wheel. Okay, day 14. I really wanted to focus on the light source coming in from the left, and then the right, you could tell from her bantu knots that it's darker in the room, or like the light is hitting one side of her face. So I made sure to like emphasize that. I also really loved how the texture in her blouse came out, and to create the lines of like stress in her neck, where you could feel her neck was like turning in one direction. So that was a lot of fun to paint. Day 15, I love to call day 15 my Frida Kahlo portrait. There is a gaze, and there's this look that a lot of her portraits had. And for some reason, this really gave me that feel. And I love how her hair, I try to use the same brushwork, and I try to use the same like brush strokes that I use throughout her hair and her edges. I try to use that throughout the entire piece on her face. And that's just achieved by ensuring that like each brush stroke is moving in the same direction. Okay, so we're on day 16. There's not much to say about day 16. She was fun. She's cute. She's out here. I really enjoyed painting that day 16. By day 16, like this challenge was no joke. It was just like getting harder. I felt like, okay, I'm halfway there. We're almost to the finish line. So yeah, I was excited, but it was still a lot of work, like doing this every single day, you guys, every day, regardless of anything else I had going on. I was determined to make this happen. Okay, so we're on day 17. So I really enjoyed painting this one for sure. At this point, by day 17, I was just thinking like, okay, how can I continue to make this exciting and fun? So what other things can I do to incorporate? So why not words, that are paired with the visual? So I really enjoyed painting her eyes. I really loved and enjoyed her gaze, and I had actually found this image too as well on Pinterest. And if you want to see the actual reference image, please click the link at the bottom, and I'll be sharing that too as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed painting this portrait of her. And at this point, I was using different colors to serve as a background for each portrait. So I tried to use, basically, again, bringing in that color wheel, but using a different color for each portrait. So I don't think any of these portraits have the same background. Some might look similar, but the colors are different. So yeah, this one was a lot of fun to paint. She is number 17, day 17, and I started writing little notes so I can read to you guys what I wrote beside. So what I wrote says, the only way to make things better is by making better things. The only way to make better things is by leading. Like, how amazing. So day 18, I actually had continued like writing little notes. If I'm listening to a podcast or if I am listening to a song, I would actually just write down something that stuck out to me. So here it reads, it's cold outside, so don't blank with me. You guys can fill that in, whatever you think that is. But yeah, I really enjoyed painting her portrait. For sure, I enjoyed this one the most because I really took my time. I feel like this one took me 8 hours to paint, to be honest with you guys. I really enjoyed painting in, just pushing how three-dimensional I could get each face. And I was like, okay, we're almost there. We're almost at the finish line. And I had written down another note for day 19, which reads, we all have the power to inspire ourselves, to inspire our friends, and to inspire the younger generation that looks like us. And yeah, I think that speaks for the gaze and the way he's looking at the viewer or looking at us. This one was a lot of fun to paint because I really enjoyed painting in his lips, and again, focusing on the fullness and the beauty in having a full nose, full lips. Yeah, this was a lot of fun to paint. Then we are moving on to the next portrait, which is actually day 20. And day 20, I had written down, find your passion, find your purpose. I really loved how her portrait came out. I wanted to bring in more diversity in the portraits I was doing too as well, and embracing and reflecting and showing all different types of hair textures. So painting her portrait was a lot of fun. Then we have day 21. Day 21, again, I incorporated my color wheel that I cannot live without. And I really enjoyed how her portrait turned out. There's something about her eyes and the way she's just looking from the corner of her eyes. And her lips too as well. The way I painted that in, I wanted it to look and feel very three-dimensional. So this was a lot of fun to paint. Then I also brought in that tie-dye. You guys should be able to see that, the tie-dye from earlier with the other portrait that I painted of the woman. Then we also have day 22. I wanted to make sure that I used the blue and white stripes from her blouse are the same blue and white colors that I use in her eyes from the palette. So I try to make sure that my palette is visually cohesive, and also making sure that I use the colors from the color wheel on the cooler side of the color wheel, but then her skin tone were the only warmer colors, so I decided to go with a gray background just to have her pop out more. Okay, so if you follow me on Instagram, you're gonna see where I painted in his locks. And what I did was I put the video on time lapse. So that was actually a time lapse to where I just sped it up so you could see my process or how quickly I paint in the hair. So that was a lot of fun. If you want to see that video, definitely head over to my Instagram account. You'll be able to see that. Then creating, this one I actually had painted over the Christmas holiday. So this was on the day of Christmas, you guys. This was no joke. Like, even deciding to do this in December, with everything that was going on in the world and like it being the holidays, this was not easy at all. I think on Christmas Day was when I was like, okay, why did I decide to do this in December? But it was so well worth it. So I tried to incorporate the Christmas colors. So I used green and red. And here I'd actually written down a few words. I will share it with you. Creating an interesting visual experience. It's never too late to make your way back, which I strongly believe that. If you guys want to know what song that is, definitely let me know. After, this is the day after Christmas, I was really enjoying pairing different colors together. So we are on day 25. On day 25, I actually decided to paint a portrait of another photo reference, but I would switch up the colors, or if there's something I wanted to emphasize more, I would do that. So I really enjoyed pairing this brown background color with the blue. Then we have day 26. I used like a yellow, sunflower yellow, marigold was the color. I can't even really remember right now. But I made sure to use like a yellow to get her skin tone to pop out. And there's something very rich about pairing yellow with like yellows or orange against brown skin tones, especially like people of color. It just helps our skin to pop that much more. And then I actually added highlight around her cheekbones, and I just brought over that same blue. I had blue was still on my color palette. No, it was still on my palette that I was using to paint. And then I also gave her a red lip. I asked you guys to send me your portrait images, and so this one was a lot of fun. I didn't necessarily have so much time that day to work on it, but painting her portrait was so much fun because it meant more to me to be able to paint my community of people who've been following along this process and the journey. And then I had also painted another portrait. She'd sent me her picture, and I think this was the first portrait where I actually not only painted braids, but the details in her edges too as well was a lot of fun, like creating those swirls. This was another portrait. We're near the end. She had sent me her picture, and I really enjoyed painting her. And he had sent me his portrait, and since it was the final day, I was like, okay, I have to end with a bang. So I painted in this like Ankara detail of like African fabric on his blouse. And yeah, you guys, that was pretty much it for the 30-day challenge. Thank you so much for following along. If you followed along on Instagram with the process, you guys' support meant so much to me. If you only understood, like I felt like I had a team of people who were just like, you know, encouraging me, every comment, every like, I'm so appreciative. And if you guys would love to see more of this, or would like to find out more about the materials that I used to do this challenge, or why I even decided to do the challenge, or what sketchbooks, you guys just let me know what you like to see more of, and I am here to share more of my process as an artist with you. Thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like to purchase any of these portraits, I have some of them available. Click the link in the bio and follow me at art_Isadama. And that's it. Thanks, you guys. See you in the next video.